We have agriculture, security, and that includes cyber security as well. We have IT, fintech, healthcare, construction and transportation. But I noticed the table of construction and transportation is already fully occupied, but there's another table right in front of me, the last table right in front of me. Please feel free to occupy that as well. Thank you. Once again, good morning. Your MC for this morning, it's Winifred Kabega Ngangure from the Investment Marketing Department at the Rwanda Development Board. We'd like to welcome you for the first ever Rwanda-Hungary Business Forum. This is the first time we're having such a forum since we engaged and revived or engaged into a relationship and strengthened our relationship with Hungary last year, 2018. And I think the timeline from the relationship has really been very good in terms of the several high-level officials that have been visiting Rwanda from Hungary, and also high-level officials from Rwanda that have been visiting Hungary for different aspects, of course, particularly in business as well. Fast moving, I would like to take you through our program this morning. We will be having welcome remarks from Mr. Emmanuel Hategeka, the Deputy CEO and COO of the Rwanda Development Board. We'll also have remarks from our Honorable Minister of ICT and Innovation, Ms. Paula Ingabire. We'll also have remarks from Mark Hotzman, the Honorary Consul Designate of Hungary to the Republic of Rwanda. We'll also have remarks from His Excellency Laszlo Mate, the Ambassador of Hungary to Rwanda, but residing in Nairobi. After that, we'll have a presentation from the Chief Investment Officer, Mr. Guy Baron, the Rwanda Development Board, and also have a presentation from Honorable Minister Ishtang Yo, the Deputy Secretary, State Secretary for Export Development at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade of Hungary. After that, we'll welcome interaction from guests and also questions, as we'll be having presentations that touch on investment opportunities in Rwanda and investment opportunities in Hungary. So we look to have a very interactive session from all of you here. And we'll finalize this session or close this session with a vote or a word from the Chairman of the Private Sector Federation, Mr. Robert Bafakurera. Distinguished guests, honorable ministers, after this session, we will move on to the opening session of the Transform Africa Economic Forum. After the opening session or opening ceremony, we invite the different private sector members represented here to come back for a B2B session within the different sectors. And we look at this to be from 12 noon up to 2 p.m. Without taking much of your time, please allow me to welcome Mr. Emmanuel Hategeka to give his welcome remarks. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I know it's a bit of divided attention here between the breakfast and the speeches, so we'll try to combine both and make them as short as possible. Mine is really to give you a welcome this morning. But let me recognize the dignitaries that are here today. Shivani Jo, the Deputy State Secretary, Laszlo Mati, the Ambassador of Hungary to Kenya, Of course, our Honorable Minister Paula here with us, Chairman of the Private Sector Federation. I want to recognize Mark Holtzman, who is very instrumental in getting all this together, the Chairman of Bank of Kigali. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want to take a moment really to extend a very, very warm welcome to you all, to Rwanda. Murakaza neza, and most welcome, as we say in Rwanda. As you can imagine, Hungary and Rwanda, miles and miles apart, but this morning, we are together. We are together in one setting, trying to forge a long-lasting partnership. It began last year when we started exchanging visits, so that's not so long ago, but the visits were very, very instrumental. Among others, we had the visit of Sando Chini. I'm sure those from Hungary will know Sando, a very distinguished business person from Hungary, who visited us and also met our president. And that's really the beginning of a very good relationship with Hungary and Rwanda in terms of doing business. And we continue to engage. I see in our midst we have also a very important company that is involved in security printing, and we've already organized a few meetings. I hope we can continue that, and at the end of the day, be able to conclude some deals. I want to briefly tell you about the organization that I represent this morning on behalf of my CEO, Claire, who is not here. RDB is the Rwanda Development Board in full, and it's, you know, the Chief Economic Development Agency, as Mark likes to call it. And we are a one-stop center for business in this country. So we facilitate, you know, private sector growth in this country. We facilitate investments, exports, tourism, and we are the registry of businesses. There are a number of reasons why you would want to associate with us as a country. I know there's a lot of things we are learning from each other. Hungary, we've had discussions in the past in areas of education, in areas of fintech, in areas of agriculture, development, and that was the discussion with Sando. But for all of you that are here, and for those of you that really want to do business in this country, let me share with you a few reasons why you find it very interesting to do business with us. There are many, but let me just say three. First of all, any foreign investor that I've talked to in the recent past, when they come to any country or when they're in the boardroom and trying to identify their next destination, especially in Africa, there are a number of questions that keep coming back. And the first one has always been security. Security and safety. Now, we tick so many boxes, but on that one, we actually tick it on a global scale. Rwanda is number 5 in the whole world in terms of safety and security, and number 1 on the continent. So that is a question that keeps coming. According to so many reports and indicators, the rankings show that this is a country where even a lady can walk at night in the middle of the night and nobody will touch her. So it's the safest country for your investment, but also for yourselves. The second is about the economy, of course. People keep asking us, you know, how is your economy? How are you growing? What is the market? Why should we do business in your small country? So it's not really about the smallness of the country here. It's also about the stability of the economy. For a while, our inflation is lower single digit. Depreciation as well in the same range, very low digit, single digit, and that keeps you as you invest in the country. Now, the third one is about the predictability of the business environment. That's the other thing that we keep listening to. How predictable is your legal and regulatory environment? And we've also focused on that for a while. Since 2008, we've been reforming progressively to ensure that we make our business environment as competitive as possible. Now, right from the time you enter the country, we've made it easier. We've removed, any visa requirements. You can actually come to the country without any prior application for visa, and you get your visa on arrival. And that is for every citizen of the world. So your coming is as seamless as it can be. But then when you get here and you want to do business, the reforms that we've done make it much, much easier. As a matter of fact, if you want to register your business, it will only take you 6 hours to do it at RDB. And that is part of the reform agenda that we've done over the last couple of years. Now, a number of reforms, both in the legal and regulatory environment, in institutional reforms, in automation of all our services and digitization. That combined, and many others, makes us the 29th globally in terms of ease of doing business, and number 2 on the continent. But as I like to say, when you look at mainland Africa, we are number 1, because the other one is Mauritius, which is an island. So if you wanted mainland Africa and you're looking for the top destination, here we are. And yesterday I got some good news that would be worth sharing this morning. We've been pushing hard on the services space, developing our services sector. And top on the services is tourism. One of the areas we focused on is MICE, the meetings, incentives, conferences, and exhibitions. For a couple of years now, we've been ranking number 3 in Africa in terms of attracting major conferences and being the destination of choice. So we've been coming after Cape Town, Marrakesh, and then Kigali was the 3rd. Yesterday I got news that the latest ranking for Kigali is now 2nd on the continent. And so as you join us this morning, as you come for the Transform Africa Summit, the 5th, get to know that this is the destination of choice even for these business tourism related meetings. I want to stop there. We will share more information. My colleague, Guy, Chief Investment Officer, is going to be sharing a lot in detail. But I want to really welcome you. Enjoy your stay here. Let's do business together. Let's connect. We have a couple of business individuals in the room from Rwanda. Let's forge business relationships, and let's do much more together. Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister Paula, thank you so much for sparing us your time out of the busy schedule in Transform Africa. We'd like to welcome you for your remarks.
Good morning, everyone. To our friends from Hungary in the room, Yoho Regalto Kivan Oke. I hope that this will earn me, I'll be the second citizen to earn dual citizenship from Hungary and Rwanda right after Mark with the efforts. So a very warm welcome to Rwanda, and specifically to the Transform Africa Summit that is going to kick off this morning at 10. It's an honor and pleasure to be with you here this morning, but also to be able to host you for the next few days. I know my colleagues earlier talked about a relationship with Hungary that started sometime last year, but I think it really dates back a few years ago, and maybe there's been very deliberate efforts in terms of creating business relationships between our two different business communities. So I realized I went straight into my remarks without recognizing everyone in the room, but my sincere apologies to the Deputy Secretary of Export Development at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade of Hungary, to the Ambassador of Hungary, to the Chairman of the Private Sector Federation, to the Chairman of the Bank of Kigali, RDB Deputy CEO, the RDB Chief Investment Officer. Before I get myself fired for missing some dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning. I think the fact that we are here this morning, especially at the sidelines of the Transform Africa Summit, sends a very strong signal that ICT is no longer a standalone industry, but an enabler for all the industries that you're going to be discussing today, for all the industries that you're all representing today as you engage in the different B2B type of meetings, but also as you engage the different government officials to understand the opportunities that we have here in Rwanda, but also most importantly to have a great sense of what are some of those opportunities across the continent. Because as a country, beyond showcasing the opportunities we have in the country, we're always looking to scale beyond Rwanda. The Deputy CEO did mention the small market size that we have as a country, and that has really been the reason why when we think about businesses, we think Pan-African, we think about expansion from the time we design businesses, from the time we design solutions, and that is what you're going to get as an added value when you decide to use Rwanda as your entry point. And like I said earlier, I couldn't miss the opportunity to be here speaking to the different business delegations, because ICT as an enabler gives us ways to forge partnerships, finding ways to leverage technology as a key tool for transformation in the different sectors. But also beyond that, as a country, as we look to broaden our economic integration, as we look to trade across borders, this is a great honor and opportunity to be here speaking to the different business leaders here. So as we share our commitment to openness to doing business with the different companies from Hungary that are here this morning, I want you to know that as a country that has set out its vision to become a proof of concept country, we're here to learn with you. We're here to learn on the journey. Yes, we're looking for perfect solutions, but maybe not on this onset. And so it's really looking at what are the challenges we have in the country, what are some of the offerings that you have as businesses here, and how do we create something that's a win-win and eventually a solution that can be replicated and scalable to the rest of the continent. So thank you very much for choosing Rwanda and for being here this morning and this week very particularly. Thank you for showing your shared commitment to the growth and development of our country. And we look forward to really forging very long-lasting relationships with each and everyone in the room today. I will not be able to stay here very long because we have the economic forum coming up, but I do hope that during the course of the week before you all leave, I'll get a chance to meet each one of you and really understand how we can strengthen the ties that are already being fostered this morning and days before this. I thank you very much, and I wish you the very best forum this morning.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Mr. Mark, I guess you can share with us the piece of secret with Hungary. Welcome.
Winifred, thank you. Welcome, everyone. Special thanks to Emmanuel Hategeka, the COO of RBD, from whom you heard. Ladies and gentlemen, honored guests, as Minister Paula alluded, I believe, and I think Istvan told me this is probably a fact, that of 7.7 billion people on the planet, I'm the only person who has the great privilege and honor of being both a citizen of Rwanda and a citizen of Hungary. So thank you all for being here. I came to Hungary in 1989. I was 29, young, single, as flexible as I ever thought I would be in my life, and I came as a tourist to see the opening of the Berlin Wall. And I called my friends and my parents and I said, I'm moving to Budapest. And of course everybody thought I was crazy and would be back home in 2 or 3 months. I had the pleasure of building what became the first Western-style investment bank in Budapest. I managed the IPO of Fotex, the first private company from Hungary to be listed in that time in Budapest and Vienna. And I saw the tremendous political transformation and growth in Hungary in the 90s. And I'm here to tell you that if you're looking for a place in the world where that kind of excitement, that kind of dynamism, that kind of opportunity, which doesn't come twice in a lifetime, it's here in Rwanda. Rwanda is the Hungary of 1989. And as was mentioned by Minister Paula and by Emmanuel, this is the most open, transparent market, completely absent of corruption. Now, when I tell that to people and I share that impression, people say, how could that be that there's a country in Africa that doesn't have corruption? And it has been completely institutionalized here now over 25 years in this country. And not only do we have a remarkable and dynamic president from whom you will hear later in the week, but this is not a one-man show. This is not a place where you have to worry about who the leader is tomorrow, because this kind of quality of leadership can now be seen in our cabinet by people like Minister Paula and Emmanuel and others. It can be seen in the business leadership in the country, and I've had also the honor of being the chairman of Bank of Kigali, our largest bank in Rwanda. We're 35% of the banking market. We have an insurance subsidiary, an investment banking group, a tech house group that you'll hear about later in the week. And I'm here to tell you that this is the most open, exciting, truly, truly dynamic place in the world now to do business. I'll give you just several examples. Our bank, when I got involved 11 years ago, had $200 million in assets. Today, we became the first Rwandan financial institution to exceed $1 billion in assets. That's in just less than 10 years. Thank you. We listed on the Kigali Stock Exchange at 125 Rwandan francs. Today we're trading at 280. So we've more than 2.5 times in local currency. And in US dollars, counting our dividend, we've more than doubled the share price. And still, I believe our security is very undervalued. Our stock is undervalued. We dual listed in Nairobi last year, becoming the first Rwandan company ever to list on an international exchange. And it won't be too long before we're looking at Europe or elsewhere for a listing. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. We are thrilled that you're here. In my role, and I'm deeply grateful to the ambassador for making me the honorary consul. It says designee. The formalities are going through our system, but having István Joe here as the deputy foreign minister is a huge statement of Hungary's deep and sincere commitment to Rwanda. And the ambassador has been here 3 times in the last 2 months from his base in Nairobi. And this, to me, is a partnership made in heaven. So without any further ado, to our friends from Hungary, Vincent Latasa, welcome. Thank you for being here. And Emmanuel, thank you, and Winifred for your incredible support. Pleasure.
Your Excellency Mate, you're welcome here.
Honorable Minister, if she's still here. No, she's gone, but she was here. Everyone saw her. Honorable Minister, Deputy State Secretary, Mr. István Jó from Budapest, the Chairman of the Private Sector Federation of Rwanda, the Senior Management of the Rwanda Development Board, representatives of the Rwandese and of the Hungarian business communities. I would like to thank you for this opportunity, for being able to address you. Before I just add my remarks, let me just say that as Mr. Mark Holzman outlined very clearly, it is a historical event. This is something, we're doing something here today that has not been done before. There are a number of people that I would like to recognize because it's a long journey, I hope, I trust, I believe. It's important that those who have made this possible are recognized, and I say it. So first and foremost, the tremendous help that we have received, and as it was outlined, Rwanda Development Board is a sterling group of people. So Alice, Winifred, Guy, and Emmanuel, thank you so much for all the help and all the input and all the guidance that you have given us throughout our visit. Without you, we would really not be here. So thank you so much for that. A vote of thanks goes to the Rwanda Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who got the spark at the very beginning. They got the point, what we want, and they have been very helpful. So this is the place and the time to recognize their help, and especially John, if you are here. Thank you so much from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Rwanda should be very proud to have diplomats like that. And last, but most definitely not least, the appreciation goes to Mark Holzman, who has worked as a kind of last-ditch defense in the preparation. Whenever there was a moment when things needed to be pushed a little bit, all he did was just to make a quick phone call. I know it's not very easy to get in touch with me, but I'm still back in the 20th century. He uses WhatsApp. I don't know what WhatsApp is, so I'm sorry. But thank you very much, Mark. It's been a great journey so far. Just to say a few words why Hungary is here and why Hungarians are here in Rwanda. Now, I'm very happy that Mark mentioned his first visit to Hungary in 1989. For those who are not entirely familiar with Hungary, maybe I'll just say a few words just so that you understand where we have come from and why we have come here today. Hungary had a very troubled history. There was a running joke before 1989 that Hungary was the largest country in the world. And the reason for that was that the name of the Soviet army that was stationed in Hungary was the temporarily stationed Soviet army. The Soviet army marched into Hungary to occupy our country in 1945, and until 1989 they never found the way out. So therefore Hungary had to be the largest country in the world if a Soviet army just got lost. Now in 1989 Hungary regained its full sovereignty, and we have been on our way on a truly independent and sovereign path. This is really not to say that, but some of you might have been following the news. Our Prime Minister was visiting Washington, and when he was making the doorstep with President Trump, President Trump said, "I like this guy because he's a complex character, just like me." So I think complex characters change a lot of things in the world, even if the changes are not always appreciated in the first instance. Hungary is a little bit like that, maybe because of our language. Don't ever try to learn, and I truly appreciate both Rwandan citizens who have tried here, but it's a very difficult language. Maybe the language leads us to the solutions and to the view of the world, how we see the world. And this is directly linked to all the business solutions that we have brought here for you. You will not get things that are very simple and very easy from Hungarians. You will get a very clever solution from Hungarian business people. And I would really like to urge you and encourage you to talk to them and try to find what's in their mind. They will be able to share that with you, and I'm sure you will find some very good solutions for your business needs. True, Rwanda is a good business destination, as it's been our way has been paved. And I'm very confident that today is only the first step in a long history of a beautiful friendship. So with those thoughts, I would like to once again thank you for joining us, and really would like to encourage you to talk shop, because that's why we are here today. So thank you once again, and I hope you enjoy the rest of today. Thank you once again.
So I think let's begin the real business. I would like to invite Guy Baron to take us through the opportunities in Rwanda.
There we go. Good morning, everyone. Honorable Ministers, Your Excellency, Chairman and CEOs, and very importantly, distinguished guests. Thank you very much for coming. Welcome to Rwanda, as has been said a few times already. My name is, as Winifred said, Guy Baron. I'm the Chief Investment Officer here at RDB. You already heard the Deputy CEO give you a bit of a background of what RDB does and what our function is here in Rwanda, but what I'd like to do is walk you through in a little more detail the country, the doing business backdrop, a little bit about how we position the country in terms of its competitive advantage and comparability to other parts of the region and the continent, and of course, as was already said, essentially one of the best places in the world to do business. So for those of you who may be new to Rwanda, might be your first time, in fact, I think for many of you, let me give you a little bit of an overview. So Rwanda is about 12 million people. We're obviously a small country, but very much central. We are very much located in sort of the crossroads, if you will, of the continent, and I think that's evidenced by the Transform Africa conference that's here this week. Strong and stable had been talked about. The growth rate for Rwanda, I think, is really a distinguishing factor. The country's grown at 7.5% consistently over the last 10 years, and as the Deputy CEO said, 8.6% last year. We think we can grow north of 9% going forward in order to accomplish the kinds of growth dynamics and the kinds of improvement in quality of life that we're striving to get to. The country is, as should be very apparent to you already, very ambitious. We do expect to reach middle income status by the year 2035. There's many assets in Rwanda, many strengths and many things to focus on. We're, I think, most proud of our people is really the greatest asset that we have in the country. About 10% of the population, 1.2 million people, live here in Kigali. And we have 6 secondary cities of about 300,000 to 500,000 each. So you're in the center now, but I would very much urge you to head out into the country, head out into secondary cities, and see what's going on there as well. Much like the rest of the continent, about 70% of the population is under the age of 30, and that's really the demographic dividend that we hope to really leverage and ride and make the most of. 40% of the population is actually bilingual in English and French. So that is a major strength in our ability to service north into Europe, to service West Africa, East Africa, and other parts of the world. And we've invested very heavily in education at various levels, especially at the tertiary level. The way we talk about Rwanda and the way we position the country, and Deputy CEO touched on this as well, is in a number of key areas. The growth rate we already talked about. It's also the most improved nation in human development in the world. Also in terms of low risk, which was already mentioned, it's worth noting that our fiscal discipline and credit ratings are also very competitive. In terms of business friendliness and modernity, Rwanda is the second on the continent. It's also 29th in the world. And we're really the only developing country in that top 30, and that's something we're very proud of that was just accomplished this last year. Government transparency, we've been ranked first in Africa. And in terms of gender balance, we're actually one of the highest in the world, if not the highest. 50% of our cabinet is made up of women, including, of course, Honorable Minister Paula, and about 63% of Parliament is also made up of women, and we have agendas throughout all institutions to ensure that there's gender balance throughout. So we want to make sure there's full inclusion across all our institutions to really get the most out of the assets that we have. It was talked about in terms of mice. We're now second on the continent. We just learned that yesterday, so that is a very proud moment. And then I think very importantly, and importantly for you in the room as well, is the connectivity. So we've invested very heavily as a country, very heavily as a government, in connecting the country both in terms of IT, where there's a very extensive fiber optic network in the country. 95% of the country is covered with LTE, 4G LTE coverage. And also, for any of you who've flown Rwandair, you'll know the connectivity into Rwanda is also something that we're consistently growing. We now reach almost 30 destinations, many of which are direct flights. And for those of you who have not yet flown Rwandair, I would highly encourage you to do that. It's a great airline. In doing business, you've heard us talk about this a number of times, and you can see where we rank. And again, as was said, first on the continent. We don't talk about the island. But I think what's really important here, and what this really represents, is a consistent effort to improve the business environment. So we've implemented over 50 reforms in the last 10 years as we've focused on this measure, which means that every year we look at the rankings, we learn from the feedback, and we work to implement certain reforms which improve the doing business environment. So we're consistently looking to improve transparency, access to services, access to credit, everything else that goes with that. So it's not a one-time effort, it's something that we're consistently working on. I think when you come to Rwanda, what's really important to note is the access that it gives you to other parts of the region, other parts of the continent. So coming here and utilizing the country as a platform, using it as a gateway into, again, not just our domestic market, but also the surrounding areas, is really very important. When you look at the membership that we have in the EAC, the East African Community, that's a population of 185 million people. It's a GDP of close to 170 billion. You look at our membership in COMESA, which is another organization, another free trade agreement, population of almost 500 million people, and a GDP of almost 700 billion. So that's the kind of access in terms of customs, in terms of taxes, in terms of flow of goods, that's very important to consider when you look at a place like Rwanda. Of course, we have agreements with Europe, have agreements with the US. I think we have over 50 BITs, bilateral treaties. So these are all very important considerations when coming to Rwanda. You're not just coming here, you're coming to the whole region and to the whole continent. More specifically, within our immediate region, this is a very important point to point out, especially for those of you in goods or in manufacturing or looking to provide services to the immediate area. Within our neighboring countries, there's an access to 80 million people in this market, many of whom have similar language, similar culture. As an example, if you look at Eastern DRC, there's about 23 million people. That's double the size of Rwanda. And that's the kind of market you can access a lot more easily from here than you could from, say, Kinshasa in the DRC. So it's very important to also think about when you come to Kigali, you're actually closer to these proximity markets than you are to the capitals of those countries. And that's also something to keep in mind. Importantly, is always the question that comes up and was alluded to, who else is here? And as we sometimes joke, everyone wants to be second. Not everybody wants to be first. And so it's important to see also who's been first and who's been second and who's also come third. These are some brands that you might recognize, some international brands, folks who've already set up in Rwanda, already have companies here, already have properties here, and many of them are looking to essentially expand that, to reinvest, and of course we're always working on new pipelines. So you're in very good company if you consider coming here and doing business. Very quickly, I wanted to just touch on a couple of key sectors. So what we tend to do at RDB and what we tend to do as a government is try to focus our efforts on a number of key sectors so that we can really build scale and that we can build clustering within these because really this is where our competitive advantage lies, is not trying to do everything for everybody, but trying to do what's best for us and what works the best for investors. These are our focus sectors. It doesn't mean we don't look at others, but these are ones we tend to pay special attention to. And I'm wanting to touch on a couple of them today, namely ICT and innovation, given the context and given the conference, and I think some of the companies in the room, and also touch on perhaps agriculture a little bit for the same reason. So in looking at ICT and innovation, the ICT and innovation is a sector which for us is obviously very focal. It's a sector that we see not just growing substantially in our efforts to position Rwanda as an ICT hub on the continent, but it's also a critical enabling sector for other areas. So for instance, when we talk about leapfrogging, we talk about accomplishing the things we're trying to get to. We recognize that ICT is critical across agriculture, healthcare, education, energy, and a whole range of other areas. So it really is a critical catalyst for a lot of sectors that we're trying to grow. As I'd noted, we've developed a lot and invested a lot in infrastructure. 7,000 kilometers of fiber are laid across the country, and we've also invested heavily in education. So today, Rwanda produces an estimated 90,000 graduates out of tertiary education. Many of those are STEM, science and technology students, and many of them are actually focused explicitly on ICT. Approximately 2,000 a year. I've seen some higher estimates as well. The sector's growing at an average rate of 11% a year, and we're aiming to get it up to 5 billion in size by 2025, compared to 700 today. So that's really major growth that we expect to see in the sector. I think it was already mentioned by the Honourable Minister that one thing we've, I think, recognized and tried to build on is Rwanda's positioning as a proof of concept location, as a function of the transparency and the functionality of government. What we hope to do and what we try to do in terms of responsiveness and collaboration is allow companies to come here, set themselves up, and really test new ideas. Set themselves up here as, again, a hub to the continent, but also to prove a concept, prove a technology, work within our regulatory sandbox, and really work off of that and hire local people and then expand to other parts of the continent. So there's a number of examples that we've laid out here, some of which may be familiar to you. Zipline is a company that gets a fair amount of attention, a US-based company actually that's the world's first commercial drone delivery service. They deliver blood and now medical products, and essentially went to a number of places in the world and eventually came to Rwanda and realizing this was where they were going to prove the concept, develop the technology, and they now cover a good chunk of the country and are expanding day by day. And now I think they've just expanded to Ghana as well and are looking at some other locations. So that is a proud, if you will, made in Rwanda technology. Another company which actually is not mentioned here, but I think is worth noting because they're in the room, is Andela. And so Andela is a US Nigerian based, if I could call it that, a company that really focuses on sourcing, training, and developing programmers for really large tech companies and many other clients, and recently set up a Pan-African hub here in Rwanda to really recruit African students from across the continent and to place them into large tech companies. Volkswagen has set up a mobility solution development center here. They're testing it here for the first time, sort of a closed circuit mobility solution. Babel is an e-healthcare company that you, I'm sure, will run into at Transform Africa. And then EWTP is an initiative we're very proud of with Alibaba to position Rwanda as a central place in the region for e-commerce and linkages into China. These are just a few examples. There's really quite a few others, and our incentives and our immigration policies are suited to this type of approach, where we try to be more flexible and try to bring that kind of expertise to really develop local jobs and local knowledge transfer. There's a couple of projects worth noting because I think it's a good reflection of what we're focused on. It's a good reflection of what I think we as a government are trying to do to really bolster and drive the sector. The first is a project we're calling Kigali Innovation City. And Kigali Innovation City is really, it's really a hub, an innovation and knowledge hub, not just an office park, that really is intended to be a focal point, a central point in pulling in educational institutions, tech companies, innovation-friendly R&D, startups, some elements of the financing ecosystem, to allow us here in Rwanda to be, again, that gateway into the continent. It's a 61-hectare project. It's estimated at about $400 million. Government's already committed to doing a large part of the infrastructure and contributing the land and other parts of it. And we've already gotten Carnegie Mellon University has opened up their campus there very recently. We'll also be putting up ALU, African Leadership University, as well as AIMS, African Institute of Mathematical Sciences, and of course University of Rwanda, which is our local institution. And the idea is here to really attract the interest from tech companies, both domestically, regionally, and internationally, into the city, to create the jobs, to create the localized and adapted innovation that's really necessary to move into Africa and to create that kind of innovation within our economy. So this one's very interesting, with many elements that can be played by investors, by companies, by innovators. The other project worth noting, which is quite a different flavor, is what we call the Rwanda Innovation Fund. And this is actually a fund that is the first of its kind to really invest directly as a sort of a venture capital SME-focused fund into SME companies in the ICT sector in Rwanda and in the region. It's a fund that's managed by a private general partner, but is being anchored by government. So as government, we've committed $30 million to the fund. The fund is targeted to reach $100 million. Ultimately, we may close it a little bit smaller with $60 million. We've also committed technical assistance to the fund to complement it, and we really think this could be a major catalyst in filling in gaps in our financing ecosystem and in attracting technology companies here. This has an opportunity for participation, but also a great opportunity for companies based in Rwanda or associated with Rwanda with a significant presence here to also be able to potentially apply and tap into the fund. Let me switch gears slightly to agriculture. Agriculture for us is still a significant part of the economy. It's about 28% of the economy. It was almost 40% about 13 years ago, so we've really reduced it very significantly in terms of concentration. It represents about 70% of our active workforce, very much because of subsistence farming. So for us, modernizing agriculture and digitizing agriculture is critical to the development of the country. What we're aiming to do is to create additional productive jobs. We're aiming to boost our exports and actually double them over the next 5 years by 150 million. And we as government have committed 3 billion to invest in this sector under a transformation plan that runs through the next 5 years. So we're investing very heavily in irrigation, linkages, supply chain, various other elements of agriculture because of how important it is. A few projects that are worth noting, bringing to your attention, just again as a sample of some of the things we're trying to do. The first is the what we call the Gabiro Agro Park, which is a commercialization project of about 15,000 hectares of irrigated land. We've partnered with an irrigation technology company, actually an Israeli irrigation technology company, to really develop this land, to commercialize it, to build the infrastructure, and to allow companies to come in, grow the crops they want with commercial productivity, commercial efficiency, and source those out. 30% is for domestic use, 70% is for regional and export use, and it's really the largest commercialization project we've done. This is available for investment, it's available for offtake, it's available for partnerships as well. And it's about a $150 million project in size in 2 phases that we've already started to implement. The next worth noting again as a sample of what we're trying to do is a company called Bella Flowers that really grows roses here in Rwanda. It's a company that's now owned by government and that we're looking to privatize in various forms. We've invested quite significantly in it. It's got world-class production, storage. Today it's exporting into the markets you'd expect, like Holland and other parts of the world that buy flowers, and really a very exciting opportunity for people investing or wanting to partner with the company. It makes up about 90% of our flower exports today, and again, we're starting the privatization process for this company. Next and last, it wouldn't be complete without a mention of coffee. So we're very proud of the coffee here in Rwanda. We've won many awards for it, and this is also another facility which was started and run by government that we're now looking to privatize. We started it in 2014. The value of this is somewhere between $5 and $7 million as a company. State-of-the-art technology in roasting and drying of coffee, and of course, coffee is a tremendous opportunity, and this is a very exciting company with a lot of focus on export. So that gives you a very quick sampling, and then what we've also laid out here very quickly is just some others. So I know there's companies here in infrastructure and in water, in energy, ICT, I know in agriculture. So we've listed a few other opportunities and a few other ideas of what we're trying to do as government. Of course, our goal, as the Deputy CEO said, is to encourage business in Rwanda, to encourage you to do business in Rwanda, and one of the big parts of being here, and potentially the most important, is the B2B connection. So we very much encourage private-to-private development. We very much encourage anything we can do to help you partner with local companies to bring knowledge, to bring capital, to work with what they already know about the market. They know the market very, very well. So we would very much encourage that, as well as some of these projects if you're interested. So once again, thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for your interest, and we look really forward to meeting all of you. Thanks again.
Thank you, Guy, for sharing with us opportunities in Rwanda. I would like to invite Honorable Minister Yo to also share with us the opportunities in Hungary as well. Thank you.
morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is a great honor to be here today. We should say that this is a historic event in our political relations, since this is the first ever Rwanda-Hungary Business Forum. I would like to thank for organizing such an amazing event to Mr. Mark Holtzman and also to the Rwandan Development Board, also to the Embassy of Hungary in Kenya. During my presentation, I would like to give you a snapshot about Hungary's export development objectives, and also that why we are here today in this beautiful country. The title of my presentation is Towards a Revitalized Cooperation. And the word revitalized is very important because actually I learned yesterday that in the 60s, 70s and 80s we had thriving trade relations between Hungary and Rwanda. And as it was mentioned by His Excellency the Ambassador, finally in 1989 the Russians find the way out from Hungary. So nothing else left than a collapsed economy, divided population, and an isolated Hungary, isolated from the western part of Europe and isolated from the US. So after the change of regime in 1989, we had to concentrated our efforts to our transatlantic and European integration processes. And finally, in 1999, we became NATO members, and in 2004, Hungary joined the European Union. We have never quite abandoned North Africa. We kept our embassies there, but unfortunately the situation was different here in the sub-Saharan African region, and by 2010 only 2 of our embassies were left in the region, one in Kenya and one in South Africa. But of course, recognizing the growing importance of this region, both in terms of politics and also trade, the Hungarian government decided to start actively working on revitalizing our cooperation with Sub-Saharan Africa. And we did this in the framework of the so-called Opening to the South strategy of Hungary that was adopted by the government in 2015. And the main aim of this Opening to the South strategy is to strengthen our economic and political cooperation with the countries of Africa and Latin America. So what are the main objectives of Hungary in terms of export? First of all, we have to diversify our export, because 85% of Hungary's export is going to the European Union. So this is, we can say, an intra-European Union trade. Hungary is an open economy, is heavily dependent on export. But only 0.35% of our total export is targeted the sub-Saharan African countries, so we can say that there is a huge room for improvement in this. In the past 3 years, in order to improve the situation, we broadened our representation network here in the sub-Saharan African region, and now we have 6 embassies here in the region. We have 1 representative office in Uganda, Kampala, and we have 21 honorary consuls working on the Hungarian-African economic relations. Trade counselors or economic attachés are posted to each of our embassies and representations in order to help Hungarian companies to meet their counterparts in the African countries. The Hungarian Export-Import Bank has opened credit lines to finance Hungarian exporters and African buyers. I double-checked yesterday the numbers of the Exim Bank. We have 50 million euros of unused credit line targeting Rwanda. So the Hungarian Exim Bank is ready to finance those businesses. Business opportunities and projects you will identify today. The government signed agreements with several African countries which can serve as a basis for enhanced economic cooperation and political dialogue. Some of the Hungarian companies, also some of them who are here today, established representations in the sub-Saharan African countries. And also another important milestone in our relations with the sub-Saharan Africa, that my Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, visited Cabo Verde just a few weeks ago, which was the first head of government visit since the change of regime in 1989. And also just a few weeks ago, for the initiation of the Hungarian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, the government endorsed an Africa strategy targeting the economic enhancement of our cooperation with the sub-Saharan African region. So, after decades of silence, Hungary is back in the sub-Saharan African region, and also we are back here in Rwanda. Where should I point okay. I need some technical assistance. Okay, now it's working. So as I mentioned, Hungary has an export-driven economy, dependent on its external economic relations, and it's influenced by changes in global demand. So that's why the Hungarian government put special emphasis on boosting industrial development and production capacities and creating a flexible labor market in Hungary, and helping Hungarian SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises, to join supplier chains of large companies and gain foothold on international markets is a high priority for the Hungarian government. Hungary also opened up its economy to countries in the developing regions. To stimulate economic relations with these countries, in 2010, the Hungarian government adopted the so-called Opening to the East strategy, targeting the markets of the Asian countries and also the countries of the post-Soviet region. And as I mentioned, in 2015, the government launched the Opening to the South strategy, focusing on Africa and Latin America. I highlighted at the beginning of my presentation that the Hungarian government just recently endorsed the so-called Africa strategy, but also the national export strategy of Hungary. The primary goals of these strategies is to increase the share of the SMEs in the export by 50% by 2020. It's important that export diversification is important to reduce the risk associated with geographically highly concentrated export destinations. As I mentioned to you, 85% of our export is targeting the European Union. So if there is a problem within financial, economic problem in the European Union, then we are in a difficult situation. That's why export diversification is a key for Hungary. And we had to determine specific geographical locations, because Hungary is a small country. Our population is 10 million only, so we have to carefully select those countries which we would like to cooperate. And I'm happy to inform you that Sub-Saharan Africa have proven to be especially attractive to Hungary. mostly the countries Rwanda, South Africa, Ghana, Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia, and Nigeria. These are the top priorities for Hungarian companies in the sub-Saharan African region. So what are the tools we can help with the Hungarian companies and their export ambitions to come here and to establish business cooperation? First of all, we would like to use the soft loan program, the tied credit program of Hungary, which was running successfully with the countries of South Asia. So the government decided now to shift our tied credit cooperation program to Africa. And Hungarian authorities will see cooperation opportunities with their counterparts here in Africa, also here in Rwanda, to break down the administrative burdens and technical difficulties regarding export, Hungarian export. Also, the Hungarian government will establish a program for financing the transportation of export products, and also the Hungarian government will establish model farms in the region. In the coming years, we would like to select 4 or 5 destinations here in Africa to establish model farms. Hungary, maybe this is a new information to the audience, that Hungary is the 6th largest agricultural seed exporter in the world, and this sector is an export-oriented one. And we are also able to export innovative soil meliorating, conditioning, and plant protecting substances. One of these chemicals, one of these substances are here with us today from the company called Water and Soil. We believe that the model farms are excellent tools in supporting this activity in order to introduce these products within local conditions, so we can prove their effectiveness and capabilities. The pilot program is running in Kenya. We have the so-called Teleki Samuel model farm near Nairobi. Hungary is also running a significant international development cooperation program, and which based on 2 key pillars. First of all, establishing long-lasting economic partnerships with the countries of Africa, and of course addressing the root causes of migration. We are convinced that by establishing fruitful economic partnership, we can create local conditions more conducive to stable growth and development. We clearly understand that what is needed here is not aid or these kind of activities, but to help local conditions to be better for job creation and knowledge sharing. Hungary's development cooperation programs focus on sectors that spur job creation and improve local conditions in the field of water management, agriculture, education, healthcare, ICT. And in terms of geographical priorities, we intend to place renewed emphasis on international development cooperation activities in sub-Saharan Africa. And we already have the first strategic pilot program that is going to be implemented with the government of Uganda. The value of the program is substantial, 16 million euros, and we will develop, implement projects in the field of water management, cybersecurity, tourism, agriculture, and security printing. The implementation of the program will start in the coming weeks with the involvement of Hungarian companies selected by the Hungarian government. Also, as I mentioned, we would like to utilize we would like to use the tied credit cooperation as a tool for allowing Hungarian companies to enter the African market. This is an OECD regulated soft loan program that offers great opportunity to deepen the bilateral economic cooperation with financing basic infrastructure projects. We are quite successful with these programs in Southeast Asia. I'd like to mention here Vietnam, and we provide to Vietnam 440 million euros as a TAI aid credit. And we are building wastewater treatment plants, water purification systems, hospitals. We implemented a very successful project in population management in one of the cities in Vietnam. The first program was launched with the government of Cabo Verde. The government agreement was signed just a few weeks ago, and we provide them with 35 million euros for water management project. And we are conducting negotiations with the government of Kenya and also with Nigeria, and we are ready to launch negotiations with the government of Rwanda. Water cooperation. The global water crisis is a disaster in waiting, we all know. And without clean water, there is no sustainable development, there is no peace, even here in this region. Hungary is known as the lands of water. We receive 97% of our surface waters from abroad, so that's why Hungary accumulated a significant expertise, knowledge in water management. And also some of the technological solutions will be introduced today by one of the Hungarian companies. We are also very active when it comes to water diplomacy, and this year Hungary will host the third time the so-called Budapest Water Summit under the patronage of His Excellency János Áder, the President of Hungary. 3 years ago we had 2,000 participants from more than 100 countries. Many countries from Africa was represented at a high level, and if you are interested to participate at the Budapest Water Summit, then you are more than welcome, and our embassy in Kenya will help you with the registration process. Although I'm responsible mainly for export promotion, I would like to tell you a few words about Hungary as an investment environment. So first of all, in Hungary we have macroeconomic stability. Our GDP proportionate budget deficit is less than 3%. The GDP growth last year was 4.9%, which is 2 times higher than the EU average. We have the lowest uniform corporate tax within the European Union, which is only 9%, flat tax. And based on the ranking, Hungary was ranked as the second most business-friendly environment, business-friendly institutional and technical environment within the OECD countries. We have a highly skilled labor force in Hungary. The unemployment rate is only 3.2%, so practically we have full employment now in Hungary. Yes. That was the presentation from my side. Finally, let me thank you again to the business community from Rwanda and also the 10 companies who came from Hungary to participate this event. So I would like to thank their participation, and I wish all of us a successful business for today. And if I'm not mistaken, we have a short video about the Hungarian business environment. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. Thank you, CIO, and various speakers this morning. I think the floor is now open to all of us to ask questions. Where are the opportunities? What are the incentives? Which sectors should we focus on? The floor is now open. By a raise of an arm, we'll get you the microphone, and we take it from there.
Thank you. My name is Gábor Zsámboki, and I'm very, very happy to be here. And thank you for the presentations. If it's possible, I would like to get both presentations. We are very much interested in. We are acting since 14 years on the African continent, and we have many, many successes. Only one thing I would like to ask that what about with the education? What about with the training? What Hungary offers here? How Hungary can participate in the education at the universities? Because our business is based on the knowledge. We are transferring the knowledge to our African partners. We are acting together with them, and we are developing the services and the products together. So that's why I'm very much interested in what is the plan of Rwanda, Hungary, how we can step forward on this area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we have like 5 and then we respond to those? Okay, maybe 3. So we're left with 2. Sure.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Wambani, and I'm an old alumni of Hungary, which I think most of you at that time were not born. That is 1978 up to 1983. And I'm actually here on behalf also of Hungarian companies with the invitation of Her Excellency the Ambassador. And I particularly deal in something a bit unique, which I think many people do not really like hearing about it, but unfortunately, it has to happen. Now, we are interested actually in getting products from Hungary, and this is basically in the funeral industry. I think in most of the countries, African countries, or even in the world, I've had visitors come and visit me in Nairobi from Canada because of this aspect here. Most of our mortuaries are in dilapidated situation. That is the truth of the matter. And this has to be looked into on a serious note. And I'm actually here to try to see how we can also incorporate this in Rwanda. In Kenya, I have been very instrumental. Those of you who know Kenyatta University, I was instrumental in putting up those facilities through a company I worked for, but I left the company. Moi Teaching and Referral, I was also instrumental. Kenyatta, what you call it, Bagathi Hospital in Nairobi, and Kiambu, that was Thika Level 5 Hospital, where in fact I had to, the government, the Kiambu County government engaged me for 4 years after installation of the equipment to also run the facility for them. So apart from having a good facility, there has to be continuity. It's just like buying a Mercedes-Benz. Then you have to carry buckets of milk or timber in that Mercedes. Really, it doesn't work. You need to have proper continuity. And that is why we're here. If I could also be able to meet the respective officials so that we can see. I understand Rwanda has got its own issues here and there from a little investigation here, but don't be ashamed about it. It's everywhere. It's all over the world, actually. As I told you, I've had visitors from Canada, all the way from Canada. So if we can put our hands together and work with the Hungarian companies, I think we can do something good. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have one more, 2? Because investments opportunities have been shared from the agricultural sector, water treatment, ICT, and several others. Can we have another intervention? And then, because we have to move on to the economic forum as well for Transform Africa. It seems all is clear. I guess investments are going to start right away.
Well, thank you very much for the questions. Regarding the education, I have to tell that Hungary is running a program, so-called Stipendium Hungaricum program, which is financed by the Hungarian government, and currently 1,400 students are coming from Africa and studying in Hungary, in Hungarian universities, in technical sciences, economics, whatever subjects. So we will start negotiations with the government of Rwanda to expand this cooperation to this country as well, because this is a very important tool for enhancing our bilateral cooperation. And we have many students, actually alumni, who studied in Hungary decades ago, and we are still using their networks for boosting the Hungarian African economic cooperation. Yes, this was from my part.
Guy, I think you would want to say more about opportunities in investment in education as well.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for putting me on the spot, Winnie. So if I could add to that, I think we would be very much open and very much welcome that kind of collaboration and exchange. We have really quite a few Rwandese students going to quite a number of countries for exactly that, the kind of education and training, and then of course to then come back and help contribute and develop the country. So we would very much welcome that kind of collaboration. I think it's worth noting that investment in human capital is obviously something that we are very much big believers in. We've made big investments along those lines. I think I touched on some of that. In terms of the number of students coming out of tertiary education, we've also invested heavily in TVET programs, which is vocational training, that are really obviously shorter, more focused, very much more specialized. And I forget the numbers, but we're producing tens of thousands of graduates out of those programs as well, who are ready to hit the ground running, who are ready to go. I think one of the other things, it's actually interesting, and the minister could have spoken a little more to it, but we just started a new TVET program actually exclusively focused on ICT, and it's housed within a high school. So it's really getting kids, even at the age of 15 or 16, into sort of specialized programs that allow them to come out and get a job quickly and add value to whoever comes here. So we're very much believers in it. We've dedicated a lot of resources to it. We plan to do that a lot more. Of course, overall education is something that takes time, whether we start at the primary level and have that translate through the system. That takes a generation. So there's been a lot of investment in that. And that will produce more and more results as we go. But again, it's been a central part of our strategy in bringing companies here, and why some of the companies that I mentioned have set up here is explicitly for that reason, to be able to recruit. And of course, I'm sure Mark has a perspective at the bank in terms of hiring local talent, and others in the room can give you similar perspectives. So we feel we're very confident about the quality of talent here. And we plan to continue to invest in it, and would very much encourage any company that comes to also work on that kind of skills development and knowledge transfer, and developing the local expertise here as well. Ultimately, it's job creation that drives a lot of what we do at RDB. So I hope that gives you a little more content. Thank you.
Someone just raised his arm, quick intervention, and we get to close it.
I'm representing a company called eBiashara Africa from Kenya. I, at this forum, will request, because of our information technology, which is running at a very fast speed, but request the Hungarians if they could concentrate on the training of cyber security, which is very, very essential if, apart from your education program, if it can be set up even in Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, there is a huge potential there because of these cyber attacks, which is happening in every organization. In fact, all these cyber security experts now, they are also being included in the board meetings to explain how this can be prevented. And this is a very, very essential, and we'll request the Hungarians if they can consider this as one of their priorities. It will really help. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I get blamed for everyone being late to the Economic Forum, I would like to request Chairman to please give his remarks.
Excellency Deputy State Secretary for Export Development and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Hungary, Excellency the Ambassador of Hungary in Kenya, Deputy CEO RDB, distinguished guests and gentlemen, all protocols reserved. It is my great honor and pleasure for me to express my sincere gratitude to the leaders of our two countries for the existing cooperation between the two countries. I'll briefly introduce myself. My name is Robert Bafakwera, the chairman of Private Sector Federation, and I just go through a bit about the structure of the Private Sector Federation for the benefit of our colleague from Hungary. Private Sector Federation of Rwanda is made of 10 chambers based on sectors. There is also where chambers are made of associations. We have about 76 associations, also based on business activities. We have also businesses in provinces and districts. So the whole private sector is made of 10 chambers and 5 provinces. We advocate for businesses. We work together with the RDB. While the RDB market for Rwanda business investments, we harmonize the businesses in Rwanda. It is my great pleasure and the honor to express my sincere gratitude to the head, to the delegation from Hungary to have endeavored to come to Rwanda, and we share experiences in businesses. We've learned a lot, we have seen a lot as investment opportunities in Hungary, and our colleagues from Hungary have seen what we have in Rwanda. As a private sector federation, we are here to work with you, to partner with you, and to make it easy for you to do business in Rwanda. We thank you, Your Excellency, for this opportunity given to business operators to network and build business relationship in Rwanda. My country is ranked the best in doing business, as it has been mentioned by RDB staff. So I think with the environment, good environment in Rwanda, created by good leadership of Rwanda, we hope the interested businessman from Hungary will enjoy the environment and will enjoy the partnership with the Rwanda business people. This meeting was good to discover business opportunities from our two countries, and it is not taken for granted. Rather, it will serve a cornerstone where we will build a solid business relationship in our two countries. By closing these remarks, I thank you and reiterate our commitment to make a close follow-up our recommendations of this meeting that are focused on the private sector. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, Honorable Minister, we thank you so much for your time, for the special occasion that you've granted us to present opportunities. But also I want to thank so much the Rwanda private sector members that have spared their time to come and exchange with our guests from Hungary. Would like to also reiterate the fact that we've noticed that there's some commonalities with Hungary in terms of the strategy, export diversification, but also looking at the different sectors in terms of economic diplomacy. I guess this speaks to the fact that after the official opening of the Economic Forum, would like to remind different companies to please come back to this room with the different table sectors to further continue the discussions. I admit that there's not been a lot of time, but that's why we've spared another more 2 hours after the official opening of the Economic Forum. Once again, thank you so much, and we look forward to continue the discussion. Thank you.